Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
My name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News. I'm here today with Eric Zhang, VP of Engineering at Scalable Press, a manufacturer which uses mass customization techniques. It's a trend and a new buzz phrase. Eric, I'm sure, will explain what it means, and I'll just hand over to Eric, and he'll go through what Scalable Press does and give us an insight into the business and into mass customization. Eric, over to you.
All right, thank you, Abdul. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm the VP of Engineering here at Scalable Press, and as Abdul mentioned, Scalable Press is a mass customization company. So it's kind of a new term. It's a bit of a new industry. But basically what that means is it's all about manufacturing on demand. So in your traditional e-commerce model, you might be used to buying something online, and all of the items you can shop from is inventory in a large warehouse somewhere sitting on a shelf. So the trend over the last 10 years or so is to move away from just inventorying items, but what if they could be manufactured on demand? So when somebody were to purchase an item, only manufacture it in response to that purchase. So doing it at a very large scale, hence the mass, and manufacturing on demand, hence the customization. So Scalable Press is one of the players in this space, and we have a very technology-driven approach to enabling mass customization. I have a few slides today to share more information about myself, the company, and also our technology. All right, starting off, I'm VP of Engineering here at Scalable Press. I've been here since about 2014. When I joined the company, I was building out the engineering org, and we started at 0, and now across all offices, we have about 45 team members in different functions within the engineering team. Myself, I was an alumni of the Silicon Valley startup incubator Y Combinator at the age of 19. I've worked the most in networking and data, so I've worked on a couple open source projects, as well as my own startup in that space, dealing with optimizing the connectivity between enterprise servers. And I graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, with a degree in electrical engineering and computer science. Okay, so about Scalable Press. We're a bit of a unique company, especially when compared to our peers here in San Francisco. We've never raised venture funding. This is actually the first company I've worked in that hasn't raised venture funding. We've been profitable from day one, and the way the company is structured is we have these manufacturing facilities. We have 4 of them. They're all in the U.S. So all of our products are manufactured in the U.S. Where all of our printing is done in the U.S. and our capabilities are then sold through a variety of e-commerce properties that we also build and own. So we target different B2B and B2C markets, including, and we do contract printing for anybody really who needs custom printing done. We also sell directly to consumers. All of the volume that comes in from these B2B and B2C commerce properties are fed in through our REST API, which is the gateway into our production facilities. So really within the facilities, they may not even know whether they're printing for a large contract customer, like another business, or a consumer who will receive a Christmas gift. We have over 300 employees across our facilities and our offices. Today we have over 200,000 square feet of production space and growing. And in the last year, we produced well over 10 million items. So that gives you a sense of the scale of where we're at with Scalable Press. As a company, what we're most interested in is enabling mass customization through continued development of technology and automation within customization manufacturing. What that means is, as opposed to other companies that might take an approach to the customization industry via e-commerce alone or via marketing, we really focus on how can we advance the technology of mass customization so the prices are lower, the turnaround speed, the shipping speeds are faster, and we give better quality to the customers. We take this approach because we really believe that in the end, for mass customization to one day take on an even larger role in e-commerce, for it to really replace what is the traditional method of just inventorying a large amount of items in a warehouse, you have to improve the technology in the warehouses. If you look at our peers in the printing industry, a lot of companies are still really pretty old school, and the really offline ones, they're still using, you know, pencil and clipboards and writing things down, and the ones that are more advanced are passing around USB flash drives. And the companies who get really fancy, they start building, or they start purchasing and using fancy enterprise warehouse management systems and very expensive software there. We take a very different approach from all of these companies. So about the Scalable Press technology, one very big distinguishing characteristic is our ability to print from one quantity to 10,000. And we have customers all across that spectrum. Actually, a lot of our customers order a single unit from us, and those customers don't actually know that they're ordering a customized product. They see something online that they like that really doesn't exist yet. We'll print it to bring it to reality very quickly so that they don't even notice that it's something that's been custom printed. We have a very specific focus on lowering costs and improving turnaround times so that we can make customized products something that feels a lot more like just any other type of e-commerce. So how do we enable this? Well, first of all, this means that unlike a lot of our competitors, we only sell items that we print within our own facilities. We don't contract any of it out. We own our own facilities. That's very important to us because we cannot deliver that better customer experience if we're just going to say, have someone else do our printing and subcontract it out. And within these within our warehouses, we build all of the technology we use in the software systems. So what that means is instead of purchasing a ERP, order management, warehouse management, or paying someone else to integrate them, we have our engineering team work on it themselves. This is, as you can imagine, a lot of work when you consider all of the facets that go into any manufacturing operation. But that's really what has allowed us to differentiate ourselves. So today we use, beyond the basic order management, we use really all the tools available to us in technology today to make sure that we have the most efficient printing operation. So that includes using machine learning to make sure that art is ready for press, preparing it for the type of printing that it will be going through. We use computer vision to better understand our artwork so that we can optimize the quality and ensure that the customer will receive what they expect when they purchase the item in the first place. We have a ton of data. I like to use, it's basically an IoT approach, except as opposed to just having a lot of sensors, we collect data from really any source we can get it on. So if you picture one of our warehouse facilities, we have a ton of workstations, which are basically very simple computers that are just dumb clients that feed data and track based on barcode scan. Every one of the millions of items that flow through our facility is uniquely barcoded, and that becomes the identity of that item. Throughout the system, throughout the manufacturing process, whenever that item touches a piece of equipment or one of our warehouse associates, we track that data. We can see, okay, who worked on this item, how long did it take them. If the customer isn't happy with their item, we can go back and look, okay, what piece of equipment or what warehouse associate worked on this item to see where we might have a fault. So with all of these technologies and all of this data, we're able to do something that I think is very different in manufacturing processes in particular. And to be completely frank, some of our warehouse operations team hate this because they come from traditional distribution center and fulfillment backgrounds, like you might see at Amazon or any other large e-commerce retailer, where they design a very good process and they just execute on that process. For us, there is no single warehouse process. We're constantly iterating. This is something that we, as a San Francisco-based tech company, we bring with us, because instead of trying to have one perfect process, we know, much like your mobile game or your social network app, we know that it's a constant iteration process. We never stop incrementally improving and testing our warehouse process. So at any given point in time across our different facilities and different shifts, you'll see slightly different processes being tested. And again, with all the data we're collecting, we can have a deep analysis of what's working, what's not. It's a little bit crazy because, to be honest, we make a lot of mistakes. We come up with a lot of processes that are actually terrible ideas, but occasionally we come up with a process that's very crazy, but just a little bit better than what the status quo is for that particular print process. And that's what gives us the edge. That's what allows us to stay ahead. By owning our technology and our warehouse management system, we're able to constantly change how we're doing things, try out all the crazy ideas anybody might have, collect the data, and analyze it to understand what works and what doesn't. So if you walk in our warehouses, frankly, the process might look very different from what one is used to in a print shop. So that's Scalable Press in a nutshell. That's how we're able to achieve the lower cost and faster turnaround times.
Okay, Eric, thank you very much indeed for a great presentation. If you don't mind, I'll ask you a couple of questions. Is that all right?
Yes.
Custom printing is within the category of mass manufacturing, mass customization. But I'm thinking of other types of mass customization. I mean, it's a new subject to me and a lot of others, but a lot of others probably more knowledgeable about it, as I'm sure you are than I am. But what other types of products and processes does mass manufacture or mass customization lend itself to? You obviously use it for mass customization of printed apparel products, t-shirts and other things. How do you think things will progress for you on the technology side for your own specific requirement of printing? And what other types of mass customization do you think, have you heard about, or do you think will develop earlier than others, emerge earlier than others? Your opinion.
Sure, that's a great question. So mass customization means a lot of things, and to me, if you ask me what the vision of the company is, it is definitely not just to print t-shirts forever. Our goal is to change fundamentally how manufacturing is done. Right now, what people do is they'll manufacture offshore somewhere in a low-cost country, and they'll make 100,000 pieces of something. They'll ship it over in a shipping container, and they'll stock it in their warehouse. If you think about what's really happening, there's a very inefficient process. What if a particular item has less than 100,000 pieces turned over every year? It's not worth it. Nobody will manufacture and stock it because they won't make money on it. That's exactly what our company's vision is to change. We want to be able for any product to be something that can be brought to market, even if it's not something that's going to be wildly popular. So right now we work in printed apparel, screen print, digital print. We also work in a variety of other print types, including embroidery. We do sublimation on cups. We do phone cases, posters, and a lot of other household items that we will customize. And if you ask me, well, why are we doing these and where are we headed to? I mean, the way to look at it is the old school way is you pick something off a shelf and you ship it. That's e-commerce. That's e-commerce warehousing. What we've done is we pick something off a shelf, except it's a blank item. We apply some customization to it very efficiently, and then we ship it. This fundamental layout is no different from any sort of manufacturing, where you take your parts, your pieces off the inventory shelves, you assemble them, or you manufacture them in some way, and then you ship it out the door. We started with printing because, frankly, it's it's got a great market, but it's also easy compared to, say, assembling a toy from its constituent parts. But that's what we're headed to in the future, as we really feel that our technology has gotten very mature in the printing market. We're going to look at in what other ways can we custom manufacture items on demand. I think more and more of e-commerce will go in that direction, and one day it might be crazy that when you purchase something, it's coming off a warehouse shelf after having sat there for several months after having been manufactured somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a very interesting connection that your technology has to 3D printing, because it takes a while to realize that, in simple terms, inkjet printing, or the type of, some of the types of printing available to all of us, what we're used to, is kind of similar to what 3D printing does, except that it doesn't put ink down on a piece of paper. It puts other types of materials, whatever those are. They can go right up to metals and things like that. And as I'm sure you know, it's a very, very fast-growing 3D printing. The whole sector is very fast-growing. So you've got big companies now developing or setting up mass customization, mass 3D printing facilities, but in a way similar to yours, although it's a different kind of things. I mean, they probably are looking at three-dimensional parts for, I don't know, other machines, or the kind of constituent parts of toys that you're talking about. So it's a fascinating area, actually, of technology to watch. But do you think you'll go into those products at all, or are you going to stick to apparel and things? I mean, it's difficult to say now how things are going to be for you in a few years' time. But what are your plans going forward in the next year?
That's a great question. 3D printing is something that we track very closely because, as you mentioned, it's something that's it's continuing to grow rapidly. We go after the market, wherever the market is, wherever we think we can make the biggest impact on consumers. That's where we want to invest our R&D dollars to make sure that we can stay up to date and we can provide for that market. Right now, I think just before we even get 3D, right? I mean, right now we're doing, I guess you could call it 2D printing. And even within this space, there's so many more products that we haven't begun doing yet, each of which is a multi-billion-dollar market. That's something that we want to continue to explore. And wherever that market is, we're going to be there to build the technology to make it as efficient as possible.
And I know that sometimes companies, not sort of because of non-disclosure agreements, are not allowed to divulge the names of their customers. But I was interested. I was told one or two very well-known names of customers. But is there anything you can share on that level? I know that the vast majority of people probably are individuals ordering individual items and not part of big companies. But give us an idea of some of the maybe big clients that you possibly have.
Yeah, I can share a fun fact there. So I mentioned earlier that we have these different e-commerce websites that sell to different B2C and B2B markets. And one fun thing that I like to see is at times we'll have competitors to one of our e-commerce websites that will actually use us as a contract printer because they don't have their own production. It's always very satisfying when we might have a competitor to one of our e-commerce websites end up doing that, because we know that, well, even if you're a competitor, at least you're still using our services in the end. I think one of our customers that we've shared is Adidas. They utilize a lot of our screen printing services on apparel. And what's very interesting about that partnership is we're actually doing small quantity orders because Adidas, I mean, as a very large corporation, as you can imagine, they have their own print shops and they're able to produce quite efficiently as well. But again, it's very high quantities that they're good at. What we're good at is doing really any quantity you'd want. So they send us low quantity jobs and a bunch of them that for them is not efficient to do, but for us is our bread and butter.
Yeah, what a great client to have. I mean, world famous. I wear their clothes all the time myself. So what's it like setting up a fairly, don't want to use cliches, but cutting edge or very advanced sort of facility like this? I know it's been around a few years now, this type of individualized or mass customized printing, but it's fairly new enough to sort of not be so straightforward to set up as an operation, the machines, the computers, the data, all the things you're talking about. How did you find that process, and is that something that you got help with from other companies or other contractors and so on, or did you have to build it all yourself from scratch?
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. I'll tell you that. So it's different, and again, mass customization is so new where there are really no best practices. There are no here's how you lay out a mass customization or custom printing facility and do it efficiently. And custom print shops tend to be very small. One thing that I think surprises a lot of people is. I would say even most of our competitors in, say, the custom apparel space are really small mom and pop shops. We're talking about a few thousand square feet at most, but we're doing it at a very large, nationally distributed scale. So there is no blueprint that has been established. And for us, and especially with the technology we're bringing, it's difficult, but it does influence a lot of our choices. So one thing we chose very consciously not to do is invest very heavily in a monolithic system. So if you walk into a very mature manufacturing facility of any sort, you'll see large conveyor systems that loop around the building that are great systems, but are very heavy capital investments. And once they're in place, they become very difficult to change. That's something that doesn't work for us because we know we're in a space that's going to continue to change, continue to innovate, and we need to have that flexibility. So what that means is we make specific decisions on purchasing and how we lay out our facility to allow for the modularity of moving individual manufacturing modules, if you will, around and allowing new ones to be experimented with. This is really designed around the ability for us to experiment with different processes and different equipment to really try and maximize our production efficiency. And of course, on the data side, I mean, having to have everything networked is a prerequisite. We've had on the engineering team, we've had to actually, I guess you would call it, hack into some of our vendors' equipment to allow it to be networked when they didn't really plan on it to be used that way. And that's the engineers enjoy doing things like that.
Yeah, I sure they do. It is a very new area, so it's kind of it's a constant innovation that it's required as part of the job requirement, as it were. I've actually spoken to, obviously, as you can imagine, a variety of different people about similar subjects, and so many of the things that you just said now, especially. Remind me of some of the conversations I've had with other people. The idea of opting for a more flexible infrastructure rather than conveyors and fixed infrastructure. That's something that comes up quite often because there's all these new robots, autonomous machines that can take goods from one part of the warehouse to another, and sometimes companies like yours are faced with a choice of buying those or installing conveyors, and that's an interesting conversation. The other thing that somebody said to me, although I can't remember exactly what words they used, it said that manufacturing is, or some parts of manufacturing are moving towards a cell-based sort of structure rather than a completely, totally integrated process where, well, everything's integrated, but it's not monolithic, as you said. It's more modular and work cell based. They were in the robotic part. But you know, I'm basically asking you to elaborate on those points. And the other thing, if I could just add something called the, I'm sure you've heard of it, called the IT-OT convergence, where you got operational machines that move and do stuff in the 3D world, and then you got the computers connected to them via sensors and whatever. And maybe it's not so much of an issue now, but the idea of collecting data and analyzing that data, you have touched on it, but I was wondering if you could elaborate on some of the points and maybe think of things that other companies might find when setting up these things. I keep looking for things, commonalities between setting up these kind of facilities and whether, you know, other people can learn from your experience, basically. So if you could just sort of maybe highlight one or two of the things or thoughts that you've had over the time that you've set this facility up.
Sure, yeah. So I think it starts with the philosophy of it, and I think you touched on some of those points as well. It's important to build for change. In the past, when we've looked at, okay, maybe it's time for us to add some conveyors to this area of the warehouse, and we talk with integrators, it always seems to end up being a very much, here's how we're going to lay it out. If you want to change it, you know, everybody loves to say that they can change things quickly, but in the end, it means that there's going to be some cost to it, some large cost to it. You might have to stop your production line for a while. But if you start with the philosophy of, I really genuinely need to be able to change this without a significant disruption or with a significant investment, you end up building things a very different way. So that starts as when you start choosing your equipment. I think there's, for example, on our digital printers, we had this choice of a very large digital printer that would produce a lot of units with every hour, but the machine was a very high cost. We also had the choice of using a smaller machine that wasn't nearly as productive, was also cheaper. And you did the math, well, it seems cheaper to just, or lower cost to just go with the big machine that produced more units. But if you look at the ability to say, even just change the layout of your digital print cell, using the large machine introduces a lot of restriction to what you can and can't do. And that includes the power requirements, et cetera. So it's not always just, okay, let's look at the throughput and the price and make a decision based on that. You have to factor in the cost of change. So that's something that we think about in all of our actual setups. Looking at the data part of it, one thing that has become very important to us is making sure that with any piece of equipment we introduce or any process we introduce, we can collect data from it in a centralized way from day one. So when you're shopping for equipment or machinery, these days many vendors will have some software package that they provide, but is that data really useful if it's in isolation? You have to make sure that you can bring that into your data system, which everyone does. We're very lucky, frankly, that we don't need to depend on a third-party software vendor to support integrating some specific additional module or additional piece of equipment. We can just program it ourselves and ensure that anything we want, we have the data for. Because if you don't have that data, you won't truly be able to analyze it in context of the rest of your production process and facility. And I think the message here is, to be honest, myself, and a lot of the other people on my team, we come from tech company backgrounds, building software for consumers or for businesses, not for manufacturing. And in some ways, that's no good, because we'll make mistakes that the warehouse operations guys in our company at Scalable Press will think is just crazy, is not a good idea. But what I think we've been able to bring to the table is that software customization aspect, in that in Silicon Valley, it's become ridiculous for you to start a company without a software engineering team who's customizing your software at every step to match the needs of your business. In manufacturing, I don't think that's something that is as far along. It's still all about integration and integrating third-party systems. I mean, frankly, there's no large software company there's no tech company in Silicon Valley who doesn't have a extremely substantial engineering team of their own that they use to develop custom systems that are most efficient for their business need. I don't see that in manufacturing quite as much, and I think that we're slowly going to move towards that model.
Yeah, that's a very fascinating area. I've already taken up quite a lot of your time, so I won't go there right now. But yeah, the idea of sometimes called it, well, I've called it the softwareization of manufacturing. They are adopting and becoming more software oriented, and that's obviously, as you know, it's very necessary to make everything more efficient and work better together, all the machines to work better together and be able to integrate and centralize and manage everything. The whole area is quite interesting for me. I just wanted to quickly ask you what OMS means. I know WMS means warehouse management system, but I don't think I've seen OMS. What does OMS mean?
Oh yeah, simply order management system. So if you can view it as what takes in orders and deals with cancellations and refunds from, say, an e-commerce website. For a lot of companies, these are separate systems that hand off, right? At some point, the order is collected from the customer and then it's handed off to the warehouse system to be fulfilled. For us, it's all integrated, which means you could upgrade your shipping speed up until the moment that it's actually being shipped out the door.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Eric. It's been a fascinating conversation. I hope, well, you know, you've done extremely well. This company is growing so fast, so I'm sure I hope it continues. Thank you very much for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Abdul.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.